Well, hello once again, Matt Facine back with you, and this week we're not going to mess around too much. It's going to be a quick intro. We've got no comments, not because there hasn't been any, there's been a load, and no workshop. I've got loads of things arriving. You'll have to wait next week for that to come along. And comments on timing, I thought we might do a recap on Kit 3 Part 2, because I think you'll agree the timing was a little bit out. There is a bit of a tight spot when the crank gets right up to the top. I've got a video which I'm going to show you a little piece of coming up, but Mike Pavey is also making his own. However, a huge shout to a member of the unofficial Mamod and Other Steam forum called Captain Crutch 5373. Now, Captain Crutch has actually made me a video to share with you.
Hello again, Mark.
I'm going to share a part of this video now. I'm not going to share the whole amount, and I will tell you why. I've mentioned this to Silver Crest, and they say, yeah, they kind of get it, but they'd rather, even though it's a great video and I understand it, they'd rather you follow their instructions. So Mike Pavey is making his own video of how to do the timing. So I thought this week we'd be doing that. Well, we're going to leave that alone. We'll move on with the pipework in Kit 4, and we'll reprise that either next week or the week after when Mike has made the video for us. So before we get on to Kit 4 properly, you can see I've just positioned the cab on here, and maybe the boiler you can see, but I wanted to show you my coal hopper support. Now, this is version 1. It's a 3D print. As with most things, you measure twice, print once, and still get it wrong. Obviously, the coal would go in here, but I wanted to fashion some sort of hopper, and you can see it's a bit rubbish. So I had another go. So this is version 2. Version 1, unfortunately, didn't have these pieces, so I just cut foam board out just to strengthen them. I broke one of these off on version 1, and I've just painted the top quickly, but as you can see, version 2 fits in perfectly. This is purely for display, and it should allow the cab roof to slide down there, and you can see that's a lovely 3D print, nice and solid. So again, a big shout out to Signal Fuels for sending me some scale coal. Now, obviously you could put this in with PVA glue. Don't glue it to the roof, for heaven's sakes, but you'll get the idea. With a bit of scale coal on there, you finished off the display of the Loco. And to be honest with you, I think that's a really cheap and easy way to finish the job. And if you do want the STL file or the G-code file for my Ender printers, please let me know in the comments. I'll make sure I send it to you. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the cab is loosely fitted just to give you a bit of bling. But let's take it off, because I have some comments about how I was going to deal with the floor. Well, I've sort of dealt with it. This is doll's house planking, and all I've done is measure where the join here cuts down there, and added the planking accordingly. Now, to make the holes is fairly simple. I've used a 1mm drill to give me a pilot hole, but because these holes are quite small, I've gone from the inside upwards to give me a starting point. Then for the smaller holes, and you've got to be steady, I used a 2mm drill, but without a drill holder, just in my fingers, so I can work it through there. For the larger holes, I used a 3mm drill, and again, that clears out the holes. And for these larger holes still, I used my reamer just to go around here and ream the holes out. And finally, for the cutouts here, I just cut from the underneath with a brand new scalpel blade. Now you may notice this is the unstained floor as it comes in the sheet, and this part here I've added only one coat of light teak stain from Coach and Wagon Works. Now I'm clearly going to have to add some more on just to weather it down, but a big shout to Coach and Wagon Works. I've been working with them for probably 5 years, and they do supply me with paints and stains for all my work in the 16mm world. There are two issues here. The first one is the cab will drop down this edge here, and I need to cut away slivers of wood for the cab to sit neatly, otherwise you'll see this join. The second issue, this wood is only about 1mm. However, I've bolted the reverser lever in position, and whilst it does just about fit onto the screw here, because I've raised the whole thing by about 1mm, in this direction it's fine, but in this direction, and I don't want to force it, so obviously I'm going to have to recess the reverser by carving out the wood. Once that's down 1mm, then hopefully all that will work. But I'll do that next week and I'll have it all ready for you. Now, while we're talking about the cab, I did say to you way back, I think in the unboxing video, I needed a figure, and I've really struggled, but I have found this. Now this is probably the cheapest option. I'll bring it up on the screen from, I think, Jadlone Toys. The Street Rider. It's a 1/12 scale figure. So as far as I'm aware, the Loco is 1/12. Now, I don't clearly want him with a crash helmet, but there's enough there for me to build something. Now, I have looked on eBay, and I've also found another figure, and I could have had Batman, Superman, or the Joker, and that would have just been daft. But I found a character called Terence Hill. Now, these figures are extraordinarily expensive. £135. That was the cheapest I found in Italy, and I might even get stung for the import duty and VAT. But my question to you, for your comments this week, is who is Terence Hill? I've never heard of him. Now, I used to work at Teddington Studios in Middlesex, and I'm old enough to remember Benny Hill, and indeed Harry Hill. In fact, I witnessed Harry Hill cavorting around one of the flower beds outside of Teddington, and there are blue plaques there to attest to this. But if you've got any ideas as to who Terence Hill is, please drop me a line in the comments. This is not a competition. However, if you send me a really great answer, I'll rustle up something for you. So before we deal with the pipework, we've got two things to do. The first thing is we've got to remove the boiler. So if Jordan can come in and help me here. We'll remove the boiler, it's heavy. And now it's time to take the footplate off. This has only been screwed down temporarily with 4 screws. So let's get rid of this. The majority of pipework comes from box 7, and yeah, there's quite a lot of it. So there we go, there's the whistle, we know that much. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff there. And then there's that bit there. And then these two pieces came off the axle pump, if you remember, when we were told to take them off. So what we're going to try and do now is install the majority of this. You're also going to need the drain cock shaft. This comes from box 8, and as you can see, that will connect the 2 drain cocks. So when you've got a lever connected, then that'll work it. You've also got the operating mechanism, which is the longer shaft, which somehow will go on here to connect the mechanism so it somehow swings. So the instructions say take these two cranks off, and you'll need to take this off as well. Now these small bolts are 3mm. This is a loose fit, so this should, with a bit of luck, slide off. Then you can put the rod straight through into the bushes. The drain cock rod goes under this assembly that operates the drain cocks, goes through the bush, and then you're going to need to put the central lever on there. Sorry, it's the central crank, which will connect the lever before you then push it into the other bush, and that lever's going to go, I'll leave that loose, that's going to go somewhere like that. Now take careful note of the orientation of these cranks. They'll sit on the end of the rod, and these bolts, the silver bolts, if I can move that, will bolt through into this assembly here. But this needs to be dead level with the other one, and this assembly needs to be dead square. So once that's in, you can bolt it all up. Same with the other side, and we'll worry about the reach rod to this assembly, which is loose, after we've got the crank situated. So you just tighten that crank onto that rod there, and then if you've got them both in the same position, when you operate one, there you go, you've got them both working in parallel, and that's exactly as it should be. No binding, no issues. So next to go in is this piece, which is the reach rod, and this will connect the cocks here to the connector that goes through the foot plate to control them. It'll go that way. Now the reach rod, look at the CAD cam, looks as if it goes under these bearers and then comes up and drops over the last one. And then I'm not going to attach this because I don't know exactly where it's going to go, so I'm going to just put in the bowl roughly into position there. As I say, I'm not going to tighten this assembly up at the moment until I know exactly where this rod protrudes upwards from underneath here. It'll go that way up through the foot plate and into the cab. And here's a marquee top tip. If you look, this reach rod's flopping around all over the place. So what I've done, make sure you use a bright cable tie. Cable tie that into position. You don't know where it's going to be at the moment, but there you go. It's not going anywhere. Now, if you recall, earlier on in the build, we had to take off the delivery and suction pipes from the axle pump. Now, the instructions say turn the model upside down. Well, it is upside down. I don't know which is the delivery. I'm guessing this long one is the delivery and this one is the suction. But while it's upside down, I'm going to use this opportunity to screw in. And bear in mind you've got ball bearings in here, so hopefully you've covered them with a little bit of masking tape. And then we're all using a not quite sure, well, yeah, I haven't got quite the right spanner on here. Can I get it in? Yes, I can. You will see that going in. I'm not going to waste your time tightening that up, and I've also managed to jam it on. But that's, I think, the shorter one, which I'm guessing is the suction pipe. Silver Crest always say, don't bend them. It's meant to fit. So if you're having a problem fitting one of these parts, you've got the wrong part. And also my favorite cable tie is in there just to hold that pipework roughly into position until we know where it goes. Saves you catching it. You've probably noticed that when we were fitting the axle pump, the longer pipe, we had to turn the chassis the right way up. Now this is the double water valve assembly, which kind of goes in here. But again, the instructions say this pipe goes through this hole. So with a 10mm wrench, and I have undone it, I'm hoping I can take this off. There we go. Now, I don't know if you can see here, if I get my wand of wonder, there are 4 bolt holes there, and underneath here there are 4 threaded areas, so I can see that is going to go there, but I don't have the bolts in the holes to accept it. So at the moment all we're going to do is put that in like that, then we're going to feed this pipe through there, and then it's a fiddle, but we're going to then fit this, if I don't get it cross threaded. Obviously I'm going to have to tighten that with a wrench, but then this pipe here goes to this union, which I believe is for an ancillary water tank, and that bolts in. Now clearly I'm going to have to get the spanner out and tighten these 2 up, but that's that stage done. Now while we were hunting for paths, we did spot the whistle, and now we've got the double water pump going, we can add the whistle. Looks like I'm going to have to get the post office red paint out again. However, I'm just going to secure, I think that is going to go in somewhere there. You know what? It's not a massive deal if we end up taking that off, but at least we know that's where it goes. And again, we're going slightly off-piste and slightly out of order, but while we were looking for pipework, we could see that this is some sort of assembly. So the water tanks will go here, and this routes to the axle pump. So when the axle pump's going, that will suck water down these holes from the water tanks, and that will refresh the boiler. So it was fairly obvious where this was going to go. It's a 10mm spanner, that's nice and tight, and it's flexible enough so that when we come to bolt it to the water tanks, there shouldn't be a problem. And there's the injector going on. Now, I'll throw up a picture because the routing of the injector in the picture is showing this pipe to be this side of the bracket that I presume will be for the foot plate, but it works much neater if it's behind. We may need to take this pipe off again, I don't know, but it's logical that everything bends up towards this. Now this model is not identical to the model that Mike Pavey built for us and indeed for the pictures, so it's a wild guess, but I think that's right. I did notice in the pictures and the instructions they've used a little bit of masking tape to hold these connecting pieces, but I thought a couple of cable ties in bright yellow, so I know they're there, then the unions will be held up against the tubes rather than going all the way down. Not so bad with the whistle, but yeah, it could be a nightmare finding some of them, so that's what I've done. I believe this is the steam valve, possibly a steam brake, I'm not sure. This fits in here, that pipe goes through that hole, but as far as I can see, there's nothing to secure it in place. I presume there will be later, and these pipes here and these dials will go through the foot plate, so we'll have to take these off and position them. And there's one final very long tube which goes from the injector all the way underneath the Loco and pops up here, and as you can see, everything's cable tied up, and I think it's a fair place to stop now. I can begin to see where it's going, but most importantly, all the pipes that are on here are thicker pipes. I'm sorry I didn't get a micrometer out, but they're the thick stuff. All we've got left is a few small thinner pieces, and I'll come on to those and show you what we've got left. I should be better than guessing at measurements, and when I said we've got some thicker and thin pipes left, that's a bit bonkers. So we have one small 2mm diameter pipe. That's the only one, and all the rest appear to be 1mm or thereabouts. So I don't know where these bits go apart from these two pieces here. And these look like they're going to fit here, and they'll probably be the exhaust from the cylinders that will go into the smoke box. I'm sure they'll be fitted after I fitted the smoke box, and I'm also sure that they'll need to be glooped in with some sort of sealant to prevent any backdraft or any air going where it shouldn't go. But as far as I'm concerned, we've got a little bit to do, but I'm very, very happy with this this build so far. Oh, this model engineering is a funny old business, isn't it? Sometimes you think the easy kits, like say Kit 3, is going to be easy, and it's not. It was really quite hard. And then all that pipe work, you think, well, that's going to be really difficult. And it wasn't. It was a walk in the park. I think we've got it all right. But I am calling time, as I've said to you, because the next stage, before we do the final bits of pipe work, is to put the foot plate on. And I haven't finished the foot plate. I still need to do a little bit of work on that. So I'll do that before next week. And then you'll have that. I'll also, as well as having the cab floor finished and painted, have that figure painted. And if you've got any more suggestions on who the heck Terence Hill is, please put them in the comments. Now, I did release a video last night at midnight, so that would have been the 4th of October, because a few people have asked me about steaming up a 16mm Loco. Now, 16mm Locos are more my thing. This scale is way out of my comfort zone. So I've launched a video, seems to have gone down well, and we're just going to play you out with that. So until next time, have a great week. Toot toot.